Okay, so for us to, of course, it is important right after facility, what we're going to do is to discuss in detail the material planning. Of course, material planning is a scientific technique of determining in advance the requirements of raw materials, ancillary parts, and components, spares, and others, as directed by the production program. It is a subsystem in the overall planning activity. And there are many factors which influence the activity of material planning, like macro factors and micro factors. So there are some techniques of material planning. For us to have a detailed or an information related to material planning, okay, let us all welcome our presenter, Alexis May Tan. Go ahead, madam.
Good morning, everyone. Can you see my screen po?
Yes, yes.
Okay po. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alexis, and I'm going to discuss about materials planning or material planning. Oh. So this topic is under our subject, productivity management and quality management. So let's start with the introduction of material planning. With the development of integrated materials management and supply chain management, material managers have learned that a majority of the material needs of their organizations over a period of 1 year or more can be forecasted in advance with acceptable standards of accuracy. So in material planning, material budgeting, and material control have taken prominent roles in the integrated material management system. So, material planning revolves around three basic questions. Simply, what materials are required, how many are required, and when are they required? So, to give you a definition of material planning, it is a scientific method of planning and determining the requirements of consumables, raw materials, spare parts, and other miscellaneous materials essential for the production plan implementation. So, in short, this is the simple and basic definition of material planning. However, material planning can also be described as a subset of the overall production planning and control system. So, just an additional information, material budgeting helps in the implementation of material planning. So first, we talked about what material planning is. Now we are going to talk about why material planning is important. So why exactly do we have to do material planning in ensuring the smooth business transactions and all that? So to answer that, well, planning of materials and working out realistic material budget can help the smooth functioning of the operations, as well as to help control the operations effectively. And some of its importance are: first is the over ordering or under ordering of materials. So the absence of materials planning leads to over ordering or under ordering of materials. Now, what is the effect of over ordering or under ordering in a business? So of course, over ordering leads to over investment and unproductive. Mm, Rinig po ba yung construction kasi may ginagawa po dito. So sorry po. Overordering leads to overinvestment and unproductive use of working capital. So, as business students, we all know the importance of working capital, right? So, just to give you a recap, it is a working capital is the measure of a company's ability to pay off short-term expenses or debts, while on the other hand, under ordering leads to materials shortage. stage, which may incur delays in executive orders, or may also lead to loss of customers due to these delays or ordering. For the second importance of material planning, we have the escalation of cost of operations. So the lack of planning leads to unwarranted emergencies or rush of orders, which may lead to costly transportation. In result, the overall cost of operations increases due to the increase in this cost of transportation, higher rate of interest on working capital, damages, and pilferage, and so on. The next one we have is that purchase becomes a professional activity. So materials planning changes the role of the purchaser into a purchase manager or purchase executive, wherein he or she can take decisions independently. So this leads to higher accountability and utilization of funds in an optimal manner. So with higher accountability, people are aware of what their responsibilities are and what their obligations are in the business. So that makes the business run more smoothly. And sorry. Nawala po yung mic. And then the next one is the fourth one, which is one of also the most important importance of material planning, is that material planning is used as an effective control device. So material planning helps track down variations in actual activity as compared to the standards set by the plan. So this helps to control the entire activities related to materials. And since the activities are properly streamlined and standardized, it may motivate the people who work on them. So when things are in line, the people are motivated to work more because they know that the business is in proper administration. So we talk about the definition of material planning. Why is material planning needed and its importance? And now we talk about the benefits of material planning. So the first one is that it avoids the practice of crisis management. Well, it's simple. When businesses have a properly administered and executed plan, situations are prevented from becoming crisis. Therefore, the need for crisis management can be minimized. The second one is that it helps to perform effectively and efficiently due to proper forecasts. And the third one is that it helps in material budgeting and purchase planning. So there are two major factors in material planning, and they are: first is the macro factors, wherein it is composed of the business cycles, import and export policies, price trends, credit policy, and other global factors. So as we can see here, when we talk about macro factors, we are talking about the stuff that happens on a global scale, and whenever it affects the business, that then it affects the material planning. Then we have next is the micro factors. The micro factors are composed of internal organizational factors such as production plan, investments, corporate policies, and inventory holding. So as you can see here, these are the factors that affect the business internally. So it happens inside the company or inside the organization. And then we have other essential factors such as the time of procurement, working capital, acceptable inventory levels, delegation of power, seasonality, are those that influence the material planning. The key factors influencing material planning can also be shown as inputs based on first, the forecasting and project management type, second, the total manufacturing order and service order, third, capacity which needs to be produced as well as distribution metrics, and fourth is finally depending upon the purchase order and customer order. So as you can see here in the image on the right, we can see that material planning is on the center of production and forecasting, capacity needed, manufacturing order size, customer demand, and warehouse capacity. So material planning can be carried out by first is the requirement based on past consumption. So we can use the past consumption over the last few years as a basis for the requirements on the material planning in the present. So the second one is the MRP, or the materials resource planning. So MRP starts with the production plan of the concerned manufacturing. Once the annual production plan is determined, the material requirement is calculated by detailed analysis of materials not in use and requiring procurement, lead time of procurement, and so on. So this is what we call the material planning process. So the first step in the process is sales and operations planning right here. So it is also called the SOP. So SOP, what is an SOP? So SOP is a forecasting and planning tool that businesses use to enter or generate a sales forecast. So SOP creates a productions plan at the product group level. So in here, you can see sales plan, operations plan, production plan for product group as explained. And then after SOP, we go to this aggregation where it includes the sales plan and operations plan, or PIR, for materials. Now, the requirements must be translated into PIRs or into PIRs for the individual materials in the product group called disaggregation. The PIRs for the individual materials are then transferred to demand management, where they are revised and refined. So after this aggregation right here, we have demand management. So in here, the PIR are revised and refined, as it is the next step of this on this aggregation. And then after demand management, we go to the MRP, or material requirements planning. So the MRP creates specific procurement proposals. And under the MRP are the planned orders and the purchase requisitions. And then it is the end of the planning process. So now, just to give you an overview of how a standard SOP planning table looks like, you can refer to this image. So this is an example of a standard SOP planning table. So the tasks in the sales and operations planning include creating the sales plan, specifying inventory requirements, and creating a production plan. So as you can see here, we have here the sales, production, stock level, and all that. And in the inventory, it includes everything in the inventory. And then we can see here that production plan can be created synchronous to sales according to target days supply or target stock level. And then the forecasts can be transferred. So the interface to complete the tasks in SOP is a simple to use spreadsheets like this tool. So I'm not going to dive deeper into its content. So I'm just going to show you this image so that you can familiarize yourself with the appearance of a standard SOP planning table. So for the process, we have here the SOP. And then the next one, as I have said earlier, is the disaggregation. So in this step, this aggregation translates the plans into the plans for the finished goods in the product group hierarchy. So at first we have triggers, wherein the new operations plan or productions production plan is included. And then the data, what data will we use in the disaggregation? These are the organizational data, master data, user input, and the SOP. And then for the task, we disaggregate the operations plan and then transfer them to demand management, which is the next step in the process. And then the outcomes are the PRRs, or the planned independent requirements that we are going to use in the demand management. So for the step three is the demand management. So the demand management is the calculated revised PIRs for the materials used using the PIRs from the SOP after disaggregation. So the actual customer orders CIRs from the fulfillment process and date from the material master regarding planning strategies. So in here we have the changes in PAR from SOP after disaggregation. So in the data, we also have the organizational data, master data, transaction data, user input, PIR, and CIR. And then the tasks are revised PIR. So when after disaggregation, we have now the revised PIRs, and then outcomes are those. And then we have the material requirement planning, or the MRP. This is the step 4 in the process, and it calculates the net requirements for materials and creates procurement proposals to make or buy the necessary materials, and that to ensure that the organization will have sufficient material available to cover its requirements. So in short, in material requirement planning, we just try to forecast what we need, what materials do we need in just to cover the requirements for the business. So in here we have the for the outcomes, we have the purchase requisitions already, planned orders, and dependent requirements. So I'm not going to include here the process in MRP because it will be reported by the next reporter. So I'm just going to proceed with reporting. So in reporting, we have the important tools that convey information about the planning situation. So these are the tools that we need in order to create a proper material planning. So material plan. So the first one is the stock requirements list. The second is the MRP list. And the third is the planning result report. So that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, Madam, for your comprehensive report. No? Okay, again, the basis for material planning is the forecast demand for the end products, right? The forecasting techniques such as weighted average method, experimental smoothing, and time series models are used for the same. No, so once the demand forecast is made, it is possible go through the exercise of material planning. So bill of materials is a document which shows list of material required, unit consumptions, location code for a given product. So an explosive chart a while ago, as presented is a series of bill of material group in a matrix form so that combined requirements for different components can be done. Requirements of various materials are arrived at from the demand forecast using bill of materials through explosion chart. So thus materials requirement plan will lead to be the development of delivery schedule of the materials and purchasing of those materials. Thank you, Madam, for a comprehensive discussion.